Hi. This podcast is called Africa Investing Stories. It's episode 8, and it's my first real solo podcast. I just want to share why I invested in Africa, why I moved to Africa for the time I did. I'll start off with me personally, who I am. I'm a 44-year-old man. I have some kids. I'm not married, so I was separated at the time, and I just got back from Afghanistan. I've had a I had a career in construction, commercial construction, which my degree was in construction management, where I was a site manager and design and build coordinator for like 10 years. We built major building developments from £250,000 to £40 million. The projects on the construction side range from supermarkets with flats on the top to little shop outlets and car parks and warehouses, educational facilities, colleges, and schools. They're all new build and some fit out jobs or refurbs jobs in hospitals. So I had a varied wide experience. My personal upbringing, I come from children's home. I was in care from 6 months. I had rickets, and then I was put in the social system. I think I got fostered at 7, fostered at 5, adopted at 7, and then I left my adopted parents at 14. But I'm really grateful to them. I still talk to them today, and kind of returned to my birth family or father's family, and then made my way in the world. And it's fair to say I've been doing my own thing since like 15 and a half, 16. So that's just to give you an insight. I'm a guy, you're never really down work. But anyway, after my last tour of Afghan, I went into private security, and we were sent to the Indian Ocean basically to stop the pirates hijacking the vessels. It was all that big Somalian pirates thing. Now, I actually sympathize with the pirates to a certain degree, because I know the Spanish and Italians were dropping their nuclear waste in the waters and killing their fish, because Somalia was, let's say, a bit not unruly. There's a lack of development in the sense of their own personal security, so they took advantage of that. But the fishermen held them to ransom, and that's how you started with the pirates thing. And then when the fishermen would realize they can get money, word got inland, and then the warlords turn up, and the whole game changed. It becomes a whole big business. They even have their own stock exchange. But anyway, I can tell that story another time. Let me not go off track with what I'm telling you now. So I did that for 4.5, 5 years, bobbing in around the Indian Ocean. Went down to South Africa, over to Sri Lanka, up to Iraq, Kuwait, over to Egypt. So that was interesting. That was really great. I was in Cairo when it all kicked off with the Arab Spring. That was interesting. I wasn't bothered. And I was in Yemen when they started their thing. I've been in Sudan when they started kicking off as well. And yeah, I've just been around, and it's great. It's really interesting. But one of the ports we used to go to was Mombasa port, and that port was a really slow port. Now the Chinese have invested in it. The Yankees and the British are upset about Chinese building ports, but I say you can't be upset, because, especially as British, you were there. You've run that place for so many years, and as in you were colonials, and you didn't build any major port. You didn't offer them. You had a relation to them, so just sit down and keep yourself quiet. But I won't get too political. But anyway, because the port was really slow, what would take her like 12 or 14 hours in Dubai to offload our vessel would take 7 days. So I used to go ashore, find and then I had a mate or someone I knew from the hotel. He was a porter and we got to know each other. He took me around and all that. So I'd meet up with him and then I'd just basically be roaming, like, you know, roaming that city for the next 7 days, do the safari, do some tourist things, chill. I'd go to poor areas, meet the real everyday people. But when I looked at the city, I didn't look at it as like, because it's Mombasa, I didn't look at it as backwards. I just saw where they're going. And it occurred to me that everything is in the Western countries, the highly developed countries, let's say, is going to be there eventually. So it's like having a crystal ball. You just have to decide what you want to do. You know, do you want to have your own car hire? Do you want to have a dry cleaning facility? Do you want to have a chain of gyms? Whatever you want to do, you know, do you want to open a chain of pizzerias? Whatever you're going to do. And considering when I was listening to the news, I remember one time it was on the radio, they were complaining that in most of the sub-Saharan countries, African countries, grow 1 million a year. There's 54 countries in Africa. I don't know, maybe 10 or 13 are Arabs, but the rest are all, you know, heavily majority black. And for 1 million a year, you know, you do the maths. Even if 14 are Arabs, that leaves 30 that are black African. That's 34 million people increase every year, regardless of Ebola and all the other rubbish there. 34 million people. Now, when I looked at it like this, all those people need a house, need healthcare, need education, need roads, need the services, the basic minimal services. Even if you removed all the idea of the luxury stuff that you may have wherever you come from, they all need the basics. And basics is money, as in is the revenue. So that's where I looked at it and I said, yeah, this is something I think I can do. So originally I was going to set up in commercial construction. I meant to build a tower block and of flats, which was 35 units, luxurious flats, and then sell them off on plan and then start building another one next door. That went a bit sideways because I didn't really understand the culture, and there's like obviously some corruption element and all these things which I was totally oblivious to, which that's another story for another solo podcast. But that was my plan. But I ended up owning a gym, and from the gym it expanded to car hire, to clothing line, team building session for corporate companies, and I had a fleet of tuk-tuks and quite a few different little things. But I did do some trial businesses prior to that. But that was why I invested in Africa, because I saw it as a crystal ball. If you're coming from the Western country and you understand how we do things, then if you've got patience, there's no reason you can't do it in Africa. And there are some things I would say don't bother getting into, because it's not really going to work out, because the powers that be will cause issues for you or won't really think. But there are other avenues that, yeah, it's a free for go. It's like a gold rush. And that's what I would really see it as. Africa is a gold rush. It's the gold rush of the continents. You know, they call it the dark continent, the uncharted continent, all these things. And the fact that you've got Russians, you've got Germans, you've got Italians, you've got Lebanese, you've got the Americans, you've got obviously got the British, Portuguese, French, the list goes on. You've got all these different cultures that have situated themselves en masse in different areas of different countries of that continent. I could take you along the coast of Kenya. There's certain towns, Malindi, which are Italian driven, Watamu Italian, Kilifi is British. Um, you know, what's it called? Daini. I think I'm pronouncing it wrong. Daini is South Coast, heavy German presence. You know, mixed with some British, but they're all there making money, establish themselves, and a lot of them just commute. They commute back to wherever they come from, and some people just stay there and live their life of luxury. But anyway, those were the reasons I invested in Africa. There was a personal aspect as well, which actually I will talk about now. I was suffering from major headaches, and I've been to the top neurologist. I was on Bupa Healthcare in London, and he couldn't work out what was going on. So basically, he convinced me to buy like 90 quid worth of pills and said I need to come back every 3 months and spend 90 quid on these pills and take them. But he can't guarantee they'll do anything, but I should give him a review of my my biological effects every day, right in a diary. So basically he's saying to me, mate, I can't really help you, but would you mind being a guinea pig? So you know what I thought of that, if you know my personality. And I just said to myself, all right, this headaches got to the point that my eyes water, I used to throw up and get diarrhea at the same time, which is very embarrassing if you're walking through the mall or shopping centre for us British people. But then when I started the security job on the ships, the hot weather, I used to be all right. The hot weather was just so good for me. So overall, I stayed out there for like 10 years. Now, what I found is I couldn't eat certain food products, nuts, cheese, oranges, chocolates. I never drink alcohol, but I understand red wine and things like that are meant to be on that list. But because of my time in Africa and in the hot climate with the sun, solar gains really pounding on you. So when you're at sea, the sea becomes like a mirror. So it's like you're getting really hit with solar gains from all angles and stuff. It becomes a strain on your eyes, to be honest. You need to have sunglasses because your eyesight, it does deteriorate your eyes. Yeah, it does deteriorate your eyes. But I found that my time out there and eating their local food, which is, you know, you've got the rice, you've got the goat meat and various other things, but generally it's like my body recalibrated itself. And because all that food that I was eating out there is not tinned, it's natural. There's no chemicals and all these Western companies doing their crap to these food products, no genetically modified food, seeds or animal being fed all this other crap. I believe my body just recalibrated. It just said, yeah, we like this. And since I've come back to England to spend some time, I can eat nuts, I can eat oranges, I can eat lemons. I don't eat cheese because cheese is just a heart stopper. I just see it as a cholesterol thing. So even as much as I like pizzas, I just don't bother eat cheese anyway. But all the other food products, that was a no-no, I'm okay with now. And I don't get the headache. So that was a big part for me on my personal health of why I moved. Because originally, it was a toss-up between Kenya and South Africa. Now, I loved South Africa. I still love it today. At that moment, you know, everything was swinging for South Africa, but one thing, the weather. Because it's either I was going to move to Durban, yeah, relationship kind of thing, and everything was really set up. But the weather gets cold, and I don't like the cold, and I find my body just doesn't perform as well in the cold, and this is my spirit, so I chose Mombasa. I didn't bother choose Nairobi because Nairobi was just like any big city, and if I'm going to go to, and Nairobi is not really sunny all the time, it gets quite chilly, so I'm like, if I'm going to be in a chilly city, I might as well be back in London or New York. and I didn't want to go to New York or anything. So I chose Mombasa because you've got the tropical Indian Ocean, you've got the hills, you've got the desert areas, you've got the fertile lands. It's just really nice. The only sad thing about Mombasa, it was really dirty, as in the governor wasn't doing his job. But that's another story for another podcast and stuff. But those were my two reasons: financial and personal health. And also, as a black person, it's nice to be in an environment where you're not ever called a minority. But the ironic thing is, on a tribal scale, I am a minority because I have no tribe of Jamaican heritage. But you know, when you stand up in a line in the street, the most they might think you're Nigerian. But then I've been told I have a face of a Kikuyu and a body of a Luo. If you know Kenyan tribes, you'll know that Kikuyus are seen very attractive, not flattering myself, but Luos are really strong. They're a warrior tribe. So that, you know, but that's and that. But those are my two reasons for finance, investment, and health. And I figured that I'd make enough money that I can rebuy things back at property or buy a house back in England and rent it and let them, it's paying for itself. And that will be my kids' will thing. So when I die, I just divide the house. The kids can share the house value. And that was my whole plan. So I had it all planned out. But anyway, I hope you like this podcast. Feel free to share your opinions on the link to me personally on the email link below. And we produce a podcast every week. Sometimes a solo podcast every week, but generally it's every other week a solo podcast, but it's definitely every week for the guest podcast. We do another podcast, which is called Simon's Taxi Chronicles. It's about Uber rides and the funny stories that I've had with customers. You can feel free to have a listen to that. It's very short, 5 to 10 minutes, no longer. Anyway, hope you have a nice day and look for you listening again. Thanks. Bye.